Peter Thomas, Fornatal, and Matt Vagvolgyi here with you to talk about angles for this year's Kentucky Derby. This show brought to you by our friends over at RaceLens. RaceLens have a great promotion going on right now. You can get a quarterly plan for just $99. Major discounts we're talking here. If you want to learn more about that, head over to equibase.com, click on the RaceLens tab, and you should see the promo right there. Before we get out of here today, actually, I'll just do it now. I'll give you a promo code too if you want to go that way. You can use the promo code TCEQB99. That's to get the quarterly Equibase premium subscription for just $99. Once again, head over to equibase.com. All that info should be over there. Matt, great to have you back on the show. How pumped are you for this year's Kentucky Derby?
I'm excited. I mean, Derby Day is always fun. The whole week is actually fun. They keep coming up with names for every day they have leading up to it, but it's always a fun time. Especially once you start to get in later in the week when you get into the Saturdays. It's just an all day event. And again, to me, the undercard is probably where I'm most focused on. The Derby itself, I like to have some fun with, and like I said in the past, I play the super high five. It's the only day ever I play that bet, but I have fun with it. And I'm usually a few beverages deep at that point. So it's having fun. It's a good combination. It reminds me kind of the old days when I first started playing horses, of just having some fun with it. But it's also a serious day too. I mean, there's some really good opportunities in that card to get live into the Derby. Is really what I'm looking at. The only issue I have is I want names of people who put my kids' schedule together for baseball on Saturday. That's what I want. Names, I want addresses. So it's going to be a bit of a chaotic day, but it's still going to be a fun day, Pete.
I'm very similar. Substitute sport for theater, and folks will understand. It is tough. Doesn't the rest of the world know to just stop everything for these couple of days? Because that's what it's like for us horse players. You are a RaceLens power user. RaceLens, for those that don't know, you can get your traditional, well, not really traditional, but a version of traditional past performances where you can go through and see the running lines, etc. But what we do on these shows is have you use some of the powerful research tools within RaceLens to come up with our angles. Did I describe that about right? How you use these research tools to try to find profitable angles to potentially wager on and not so profitable ones to stay away from?
Yeah, I mean, you can, like you said, you can use it from the very basics of going through past performances and customize those performances. What I would say is that's not really the kind of the design of it. Really, the ability is for you to do detailed research in a very short time. That's more plain English, right? You don't have to have a coding background. You don't have to have different platforms to run this data through. It's basically simple clicks, looking through what they have available, putting them together and seeing what it comes out. So again, it's more of an easier way for the everyday person to do some deep research to get some really good information is through RaceLens.
You understood your assignment for the show. You also overperformed. I said 5 angles. We've got more than that. Let's start going through them, my friend. And we'll start off with one that pertains to the Derby morning line favorite. Things shifting in international markets. We'll see what they do over at Churchill Downs in these pari-mutuel pools over the next few days. But it concerns Renegade, the 4-1 morning line favorite. Talk us through this one and tell us what you think about this horse.
Yeah, so this is more of, I would say, of a general angle here, but I like to look at these, especially in big races like this and big fields. But looking at it from Churchill Downs on the dirt, those dirt routes and graded stakes, again, I'm casting a wider net here to get a bigger sample. Late pace has been extremely strong in these races, especially over the last year. Even the 5-year has a positive ROI, positive 8% ROI. But looking at it over the last year on these 24 starts, 20%, 21% winners, but again, 74% of them in the money, meaning that these horses are coming late. They're making up ground late. A positive 42% ROI is big as well. Now, specifically, I put this at, yes, get a general idea on a pace perspective, early pace, late pace, etc. I do that and again, that's one great thing in RaceLens. You can just build in for every track that you play and just leave it active. And it just continues to show up and recalculate every single race day. But I put this in there specifically when you look at it from Renegade's standpoint. And again, drawing the rail always draws the discussion. I think it's much different today than it was prior, the new gate they have. I thought FanDuel TV actually did a really good job of showing the visual perspective of what the old post position looked like versus the new, and it's night and day difference. So interested to, again, to see where this horse ends up price wise, but also I think when looking at it from a pace perspective, if Renegade does take off the pace, finds a nice spot to settle in, having this data of the late pace figure to back that up, again, makes me want to gravitate towards this horse. So a couple of reasons, like general idea, but also too specific to Renegade in the draw. I thought this was interesting to take a look at.
We'll talk. I'll hold your feet to the fire for an official selection at the end of the video, but let's go through some more stats. This next one, more of a point of interest this year than something that's actionable, but I still thought it was really interesting and a good example of the kind of data you can test for in RaceLens that you can't do in many of the other racing databases out there. The 1 million plus sales price, you might have the knee-jerk reaction of thinking, hey, I want the one that cost $1 million. Talk us through what the data says.
Yeah, I try to look at it through the idea of maybe what an average horse player would look at in the race like this, of saying, well, this horse, obviously they think highly of this horse that they spent that kind of money on. It just hasn't worked, is kind of the basic answer to it. Over the last 5 derbies, 47 of them have had that $1 million or more sales price. Just 2%, which again, Mage is the only one on the last 5 to be in that conversation in 2023. Maybe just 19% in the money. I mean, just an atrocious ROI. It just tells you like the sales price, is not indicative of this type of race, right? So again, I think interesting to look at, something that I wouldn't be an automatic gravitation to. I will say that I'll add this, Pete, on the turf is a bit of a different story. So that's something you may want to look at in terms of average earnings as well as sales price, I think is interesting on the turf. But again, talking Derby, it really hasn't been anything of a performance when it comes to that.
A quick aside while I update to our next slide. That's kind of fun. I always love it when newfangled methods such as this type of statistical analysis align with the old handicapping saws that I would have learned way back in the 1990s when I was picking up betting on horse racing. And you'd always hear about class on the grass. Well, maybe that purchase price there is a proxy for having that class that the old heads were always worried about. Let's move on to another horse that's going to be attracting plenty of attention at the windows on Saturday. A lot of buzz. For further ado, and we've got a few different ways of looking at the world here. One positive, one negative, both things that I think we can talk about. Tell us through what you found regarding Further Ado.
Yeah, very similar to before, kind of more of a general angle. I do like this angle a lot. I use this quite a bit, just kind of on the everyday play of horses coming out of graded stakes races, margin of victory of 5 or more lengths. So really kind of blowing, I call it the blowout angle, where they're blowing that victory out. And then these horses wheel back quick, that 8 to 30 day layoff coming right back into a graded stake race. Just shows that, horses are getting better. They think very highly of the horse. They want to get the horse right back on the track and run again. Again, I'm inferring through the data, but again, this is what I like about doing this, is that I have a thought of, well, I think they are feeling very highly of this horse. Let's see what the numbers say. And to me, 31% winners on 62 starts, just again, massively in the money. 71%, you're building your tickets around a horse like this, and a positive 33% ROI over the last 5 years. To me, again, the logic is really starting to play into the numbers here. And again, it's an example of how I like to use RaceLens. Come up with an idea, start to play around with different ways to research it. And, looking at this one here, this is what Further Ado comes in on there. A blowout win, wheeling back fast. It's going to get some attraction, obviously, in the windows. Again, I think highly of Further Ado, but that was one angle that I do like in general, and hits in the Derby here as well.
The win percentage, no surprise at all. The in the money percentage, a little better than I would have guessed. The ROI, so much better than I would have guessed. I would have thought these were the master of the obvious horses that the public gravitated towards. And I'm just hypothesizing here, but it almost makes me think that market-wise, people see those blowout wins and coming back quick. And this idea of the bounce, which maybe some of the people watching Derby Week aren't even familiar with, but this idea that a horse might react and run poorly coming back too quickly off a big effort, maybe that's almost baked into the market now, where people are in the money is almost expecting a regression in these situations, but we're not seeing it in this data, or we're seeing them, and we're certainly seeing the market underrating these horses with that plus 33% ROI. But the news isn't all necessarily rosy for Further Ado, because there is a jockey change at play here. And this one pretty logical, that the first time rider in the Derby doesn't have such great stats on these horses. Talk us through your interpretation of what this might mean.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an example of where you're not really surprised about the result. And sometimes that's a good thing too. Like putting data to ideas and thinking of like, how many times, like, does it really make a difference when you have all these musical chairs, especially for the Derby, all these musical chairs happening for, who's going to ride who? Does it really make a difference? And my thought of before running this was like, I think just again, through the athlete's brain, I think it makes a big difference. When you're not fully in tune and have full understanding of the animal that you're riding and the tendencies that they have, I think that's a big deal in a race like this, where it is just, bumper cars out of the gate. It's the largest field going a distance they've never gone. Like all these things, like the nevers and, the ideas of, not having a clear vision as to how this race will be run. I think it plays into it. And again, short sample here of 5 years, but 25 starters, not one of them have won. Again, I think that's something to really think about when it comes to that first time jockey. And again, not to say to throw you off a horse, but I think it should be part of the mix, should be part of the portfolio of the thought process behind looking at some of these horses. And that gives me a little bit of a pause here, even though I do like Further Ado. I think that jockey not being in tune with the animal, I think is a bigger deal.
And there's another angle to this as well, another angle to the angle, as it were, which is if the horse was, and I'm not necessarily saying I believe this about Further Ado. It's a thought experiment. But if the horse was really the Derby winning type, would the previous jockey get off? That's the other question. Maybe not. Maybe not. Suggest the data. We'll see how it plays out. I obviously think Further Ado has a huge chance, and we're giving you two conflicting stats, a positive and a negative there. But it's just all to further the kind of fun conversations we like to have on Derby week. Now, let's get into these Derby workouts a little bit. There's so much hype around the workouts this time of year. You hear it left, right, and center. We've got our own workout report actually as part of our In the Money Plus package. If folks are interested in everything we've got on the Derby, don't worry, there's loads that's free. But we also have the inthemoneyplus.com Derby package with workout reports and other things. But let's hear about these two angles in terms of earnings and the bullet works.
Yeah, don't mean to end the last few that we're going through here on the negative side, but again, that's part of it, right? It's also helping. To me, my process is who can I eliminate first, and then go back, right, and then to look to see kind of what's left. Again, I think one of the most obvious things, and this is like we have these discussions, Pete, of like what's kind of the obvious that jumps off the page to a regular player. Listen, the dot on the page on the bottom of the past performances is a big one, right? It's this horse must be just absolutely ready to go. And I've listened to so many clockers talk about workouts in so many different ways. And it just makes my head spin of like, I thought I had an idea, but now I don't, right? Because there's so many different things to consider and to look at and what the objective is. And, but again, basically when you look at it, 10 starters have come in with bullet works and it just hasn't worked in the last 5 years. So again, no winners when you look at the bullet work coming into the Derby. And also on top earnings too. It's who is the most decorated horse coming into the Derby. 0 for 5, and Forever Young is the only one to hit the board. So just a couple obvious things looking through past performances of what may jump out in a confusing large field like the Derby. What's kind of the easy things to gravitate towards? I would say just maybe take a pause and look elsewhere. I would say when it comes to these types of stats.
One other thing about the bullet work, as we've learned from talking to clockers over the years, not so much about how fast you work as it is how you work fast, as it were. That's what's great about hearing somebody like Chris Couples go into his thoughts about workouts. It's not just about the raw time. It's how they looked on the day, how they looked relative to how they looked before. One of the reasons why people pay money for that type of information. And I do wonder with the earnings thing, if that isn't tied specifically to all the money available in those Middle Eastern preps, which are not really as classy and certainly not as historically successful as the domestic tried and true paths of getting to the Derby. It's always fun to put these stats out there, look at them, and then we get to talk about what they might mean. You and I are both really into the GPS data. I have a whole video with Ben Kudla, who works for RaceLens. We go through stride data on all of the horses in the Derby. You can find that elsewhere on YouTube. Other things you can find on YouTube in addition to all of our ITM content. We encourage you to get that. I won't plug that. I will plug the channel. Subscribe to the In the Money Media YouTube channel, people. I know most people watching are not, and we put out a lot of great stuff on there, and you're not going to want to miss it. But on the RaceLens side of things, Ben and I have that video on the Equibase channel, and Equibase also have a Derby preview that's always a must-watch. I'm not sure. They're probably doing that tonight, or it might be up there already. I haven't caught up yet. But anyway, make sure you look for the full-on RaceLens preview. But we love this stride data. It's really interesting. It's new. You found some interesting stuff in the negative realm as far as horses, with a couple of specific pieces of information in that data set, the top miles per hour and the top average strides. It's a small sample, but I think it's a little interesting. Talk us through it.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not against this new wave of data analytics that can be applied to these horses. I think it's incredibly interesting, and I think it's something that over time is going to be very, very helpful, looking through this and being able to combine it with kind of already, set databases there with these horses. So again, this is something it's new. It's something that in the early stages of building myself, but also building through RaceLens. My point here is kind of like it's the shiny new toy, right? Of looking at some of these advanced analytics and saying, and some people just gravitate automatically towards them. Again, small sample of just 4 derbies, so that's the max we've been able to go back with. That's how new this data is here. But again, we look at it for miles per hour. That again, just looking at it from the fastest horse idea in a different way, as well as the average strides in terms of how the horse is running. Again, just has not fared well in the first 4, right? So, again, no better than 15th. For both of these angles here. But like I said, not fully against it, but I pause when you look at something brand new, something that you may want to just blindly gravitate towards. That's kind of the idea here, right? It's part of the idea process, but again, it hasn't necessarily worked in the first 4 that we've had data for.
And my gut here is that there's so many numbers that you can get with this advanced data. And I'm guessing that these metrics that have not been successful are pointing to horses that are going to be more successful over not the 10 furlongs, but more sprinter types. And it's showing that, having that raw speed to get a high MPH over a shorter distance, that's not necessarily going to translate when you're going 10 furlongs. When you're going 10 furlongs, I want to see stride length. I want to see stride cadence. You can get both of those pieces of info in that data set. Not only do we have the Ben Kudla video coming up, but I have another video where I'm going to go through 5 different takeaways from looking at the stride data. So if you're interested in that new way of looking in the world, look for that. Again, if you subscribe to the In the Money Media YouTube channel, you don't have to think about it again. Let's see if this little trick that I pulled worked. Yes, it did. I wanted to show the deal one more time. If you're interested to learn more about RaceLens, you have the opportunity to get this quarterly plan. That'll give you ample opportunity to dig in and see if this is something for you. You can see the code right up there on screen, TCEQB99. I'm pretty sure if you just go to equibase.com and poke around, you'll be able to see that as well. I'm logged in, of course, so I don't get the new promo offers, but I bet the people out there will. Matt, I promised that we would, at the end of the video here, give your official Derby selection. Who's it going to be?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be an official final selection, Pete, but I'll give you where I'm thinking. And we alluded to it before with Renegade drawing the rail. I'm very, very interested to see how the public bets it domestically and also, in faraway places as well, of like how is this horse being bet? I think this could be a great potential scenario where it's bet differently. Where it's bet differently domestically versus in different places. So price wise, if I can get, as we were talking about before we came on, if I can get in that 7-8 to 1 plus range, this is a horse I want to bet. Again, I see a scenario where the rail is not the end of the world and can find a spot to settle. There's also a spot too where it can just, be shuffled all the way back and have a very difficult time getting up. But that's why I showed again that late pace angle.
Yep.
That's kind of the idea behind that is, can we find a good spot? I trust Irad, basically picking to be on this horse to find that position and to finish. Another horse that I am interested in, I'm a sucker for these horses, but it's the lightly raced horses coming into the Derby, which is emerging market. Again, has done nothing wrong. I don't know how this horse, based on what we've seen so far, stacks up to the field. But again, these are young horses. I've described the Derby as, my kid's kindergarten class going out for recess, all going through the same door, right? You're not sure what's showing up. You're not sure who's focused. You're not sure what direction they're going. And maybe that day my kid decides to run directly straight and just take off. So, that's kind of how I see the Derby here. And again, when you're this young and just, again, the limited starts, you really don't know what kind of race a horse like this can step up and run. And obviously with the conditioner we have involved here, again, we've had a proven track record of improving these horses. So those will be the two that I'm watching intently, but I'll be messing around with quite a few and a lot of the, pick fives to get live to some horses, as well as, trifectas, supers, and super high fives and the Derby to have some fun with.
7-1, is that the cutoff, or would 6-1 Renegade still be a bet for you?
No, I mean, if it's at morning line or less, I want nothing to do with it. You start getting in the 6-7-1 range. Yes, I become interested in that. That's a tough part with the Derby. I try to explain this to people, Pete. Like, it's a very hard race to look at it from a win perspective because the favorites are too short and the long shots aren't long enough, right? So
right.
You're telling me like, okay, well, Rich Strike won. What more do you want? Rich Strike should have been 400-1. Like, again, when you have a math brain, you can't unsee that, right? It's like when I walk into a casino now, I will look at all these people playing slot machines. I'm like, what are you doing? And it's the same way here, right? So the short, like some of these horses that are 4 to 5-1 as favorites, relative to the size of the field and just their pure probability, should make them a much different price. And it's the same on the long end. They're just not long enough, and they should be a lot longer. So it does get difficult there. But again, if you find a horse that you like, that's deviated from kind of your fair value line, and again, that's kind of the way you play it.
All right, one more for you. You mentioned you're going to be swinging for some of these super exotic, super high five, superfect, etc. We know who you like at the top of the market. Who's the wild, the crazy horse you're going to be having in there somewhere? Feel free to name or number check. Well, don't number check. Feel free to name check a few, or just give me one that you'd like to see be able to sneak up there and maybe really juice a payout for people.
My brain will slap me in the head for saying this because I'm just against the Japanese runners, but somebody like Wonder Dean getting into the mix there, even Intrepido getting into the mix. God knows what price that horse will be. Yeah, that's a tough one. I would say those are like Intrepido to me, and Wonder Dean, I think, are horses that you'll see running late and like, wait, who's that again? Everyone looks down at their page to see who the hell. They're kind of like Rich Strike.
The Rich Strike.
I'm not gonna lie. I was thumbing through my laptop as I picked up the horse run and coming weaving through horses, and I'm like, I don't know who this horse is. So
yeah, the 21. What?
Yeah, right, exactly. So those would be the couple of horses that I'm gonna play around with. But there's a lot. This is a great Derby. I think this is a great betting Derby to get involved in some of these broader exotic plays. I don't know, what is it, the Octofecta? I don't know if I'm in there, Pete.
We'll save that for another conversation.
Yeah, but yes. Yeah. So, but again, I think this is a Derby though that is going to be a lot of fun, and I think you can get some wild payoffs at the end of the day.
Good stuff. And the Japanese idea isn't crazy at all. I mean, T.O. Password, a very big number, got fourth the other year. I mean, why not? All right, Matt, thank you so much. Thanks to you one more time. Thanks to our friends over at RaceLens and Equibase. Make sure you subscribe to the In the Money Media YouTube channel.